Okay, so with this video, I want to do something a little bit different. This is going to be quite a personal video because I'm going to be discussing an important part of my own life. But I'd also like it to serve as maybe something for young people to reflect on from someone who's been there, someone who's experienced it. And I really want to address young people who are going to university. Now, I say young people as opposed to mature students. Because of course you could still be young if you're a mature student. 26 is still young, but what I mean is people who are going to university for the first time after their in this country A levels, when they're at that sort of age, and rather than going to university a bit later in life whereby maybe they feel they just want to do a particular course and they're going more for the education side of things than the whole rounded experience. Um, I was looking at some old diaries of mine, and looking back at the entries, it really says a lot about my mindset at that time. So, I thought this video would be useful for young people who maybe have questions, or maybe concerned, or indeed those who are already in university and are finding it quite difficult to cope. Now, I don't pretend that I know everyone's individual situation, but I think some of the things I say here may be useful. So if you take just a few minutes to listen to this, you may find it helpful. I don't want to say I'm giving you advice because I don't want to impose on anyone, but if you think you may be interested, please keep listening. So I went to university between 2004 and 2006. I went to the University of Wolverhampton, which is a large university in the West Midlands. Large university, about 25,000 students when I was there, which actually made it one of the largest universities in the UK by numbers at the time. It's certainly not one of the best known universities. It was what we call a new university, a former polytechnic. Um, Speaking candidly, it never done particularly well in the league tables, although I would stress that league tables don't pay too much attention to them. Don't let your entire decision be rounded by where universities rank on the Sunday Times, because new universities obviously have space for development in a way that Oxford or Cambridge or Durham or even the red brick universities from the Victorian period have had a much longer time to do. So I think it's a little unfair to compare, for example, Wolverhampton or Sunderland or East Anglia with Oxford or Cambridge, because it's just the history is totally different. Um, anyway, that's that. What I want to do in this video is not talk about how you apply for university and all the practical side of things. I want to talk more about life at university. Now, universities, their basic principle should be seats of learning, seats of research, sharing ideas, discussion, and debate. In the years since I left university, I do feel that there has been an increasing intolerance, and I've been very outspoken about this. How I feel it's coming from, especially the regressive left. But if you are a left-leaning young person, please don't let this video, don't stop watching because you think I'm going to be biased. Because I think the things that I'm going to say really apply to everybody, regardless of what your political viewpoint is. Now, in my own experience, I actually lived on campus, right in the heart of the university. Um, what I found was that the social side of things became overwhelming. Firstly, there was parties all the time. In halls of residence, there was always parties going on. There was a large number of international students at Wolverhampton, especially from continental Europe, from France, from Germany, from the Czech Republic. Those are three countries I remember in particular, but other countries as well. Um, there weren't as many students, from what I remember, outside the EU as there maybe is today or there is at other universities. For example, there'd be a large number of large numbers of Chinese and Indian students. In Wolverhampton, I didn't see so many. I'm not saying that's the situation today, but it's just what I remember. Now, eventually, I left without graduating. That's not a very easy thing to say because there is a bit of a stigma around that for people who drop out of university. But there's no point of me being pretentious. There's no point of me being dishonest if I really am sincere about trying to reach out to people. I left early simply because I could no longer cope with what I felt was the social side of things clouding over the academic side of things. Um, Now, I have a lot of respect for Jordan Peterson, Professor Peterson, and a lot of the things he says, but I do feel sometimes he's a little dismissive or a little bit. He sometimes comes out with sweeping statements. It's the only contention I have with Professor Peterson. He'll say things, for example, just grow the hell up. And he does have a tendency to make somewhat sweeping statements. That's the only issue I take with him. Um, and, to Professor Peterson fans, don't get me wrong, I think he's making a lot of very valid points about freedom of conscience and freedom of speech and so on. But I do find that a little bit irritating the way he tends to simplify things, quite honestly. In my experience, when you're in that sort of dynamic, when you are finding yourself and you are amidst a lot of other people who are finding themselves, it's all very well saying grow up, but it's a lot easier said than done. It's not something that you can just find an easy solution for. And basically, I had to leave because frankly, I was close to a nervous breakdown. I was getting counseling at the time, and I just found it totally overwhelming. I got to the point where I was thinking that other students were judging me. And looking back, there may have been little basis for that. But what you find when you go to university, especially if it's outside your own city, so if you're going somewhere where you're not used to, you're meeting completely new people for the first time. It's quite intimidating. It really is. If I was to have one piece of advice for young people going to university, or even in university, it would be this: take it easy. Take it easy. Don't let the experience intimidate you, because the years that you spend in university, whilst formulative, they won't define your entire life. I think this is a very important point. I think there is this deep fear that a lot of young students have that I'm in university now, I must define myself. Now, in the UK, undergraduates starting university for the first time are generally aged between 18 to 21, with some exceptions. That's a rough age range. That is very, very young. So if you feel that even if you're a third year, if you haven't quite found yourself at the age of 21, believe me, believe me, it is not the end of the world. I'm 32 years old. I've done things with my life in that time between leaving university. At that time, I felt awful. I felt I was a failure. I felt it was the end of my world. Now, has my life gone smoothly since? Absolutely not as much as I would like it to have been. But, and this is very important, do I feel like a complete failure? No, I don't. I've had some pretty big achievements, personal achievements in that time. And this is the thing about achievement, it really is how you perceive it to be. Do not let anybody tell you that you're a failure. If you feel that you could have done more with your life, and this really applies to any age. Obviously, as we get older, the implications are bigger. That's something that's unavoidable. But I really do feel that achievement is something that we impose on ourselves. Of course, people will look at us. It's part of human nature that we compare and contrast with how well other people are doing. And there are people who matter, our parents. our spouses, our partners, their opinion does matter because how well we're doing in life will have some impact on them. But in terms of everybody else, and as a general principle, don't let others dictate to you how well you're doing because not everybody is the same. People progress at different levels. Someone may find that they have huge achievement at the age of 55. Others may find it comes at 25. To give an example, some very successful writers found themselves, they got published in their late 50s. Now, I'm not saying be complacent and don't work hard. I'm not saying don't try to be ambitious. That's a very good thing. It's a good thing to be ambitious. But what I found is at university, my ambitions basically got on top of me. I scared myself. I put too much on my mental plate, where I basically said to myself, I have to be a genius by the age of 25, otherwise, I'm a failure. Looking back, it was absurd. And the pressure I faced was unbearable. And most of it came from myself. Of course, there is an element of that from other people. Unfortunately, you sort of expect students at university level will be growing up in the sense of not gossiping and so on. But unfortunately, a degree of that does happen. What I would say is focus on yourself, but don't scare yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. So, yes, of course, focus on your studies. That's very important to try and get that degree. But also enjoy the university life. It's about getting a balance. Study hard, but yes, enjoy yourself because you will meet new people. You will have experiences that you didn't have before, and it can be very exciting. But don't let yourself get into a situation where you're thinking, I'm under pressure to find myself. And then these other people, they all have all got their ideas. What you need to remember is other students may seem like they're doing better than you, but everybody is fundamentally on the same boat where they're trying to find themselves. So don't scare yourself. Don't think, I have to do it all at once. You can't find yourself overnight. You just can't. We're constantly developing our ideas. We're constantly evolving our ideas. We're constantly learning all the time. Everybody. World leaders are learning all the time. This is very, very important because if you put yourself in this pedestal where you think that you have to know everything and you have to do everything by the age of 21, you're going to end up in a situation where, like I was, you're facing an unbearable amount of pressure. So, what I would amicably say, take it easy, enjoy the experience. Yes, work hard, study hard, and if the worst comes to the worst, and you mess up your studies, and you are finding yourself in a situation where you're dropping out, yes, it will be disappointing, but it isn't the end of the world. It's not. If you find that you leave university earlier than you intended because maybe you've had a similar problem that I did, it's not the end of the world. You can still achieve great things. You can go back as a mature student if that works out for you. You don't have to. There's been people who've achieved great things who never went to university. We've had several prime ministers who never went to university. Both John Major and James Callaghan, unless I'm mistaken, never went to university. So, what I would urge people is yes, university is very important. Yes, it is a way to explore yourself. Yes, it's a way to meet new people. But just take it easy. Nothing that happens at university is so profound that it's going to impact your entire life. Yes, it is very important to work hard and try to get that degree. I'm not downplaying that. It is important. But don't let yourself get to a point, especially in this country. I don't want to talk so much about other countries because I'm not that familiar with their education systems. But in the UK, if you don't graduate, it's not the end of the world. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, be complacent. I'm not saying don't try to graduate. You should. But the most important thing is trying to be in a position where you're comfortable. I don't mean complacent. I don't mean comfortable like, oh, I could just sit back and drink beers and not care. I'm talking about being comfortable in yourself in in the approach that you're taking to improve yourself. I think that's probably the most sound advice I can give as someone who has been there. Now you might say, well, who are you to give advice? You dropped out early. The reason I'm saying this is because I know that there will be young people out there struggling. They'll be thinking this is the end of the world. So my advice is not about how to graduate. Obviously, I didn't, and that's something that I do regret sometimes. I wish that I'd not let things get on top of me, but it wasn't the end of the world, and I wouldn't say it's totally ruined my life. Has my life been as successful as I would like it to be? No, not quite. But there are university graduates, people who got their degree, who graduated, who have also been disappointed with life. So it's not a case that you will graduate and life will be smooth. That is a complete myth. It's That's not the situation at all. So what the people I want to reach out to are people who maybe are struggling at university or people who are going to university. You're 19 years old, you're excited, you're nervous. What I would say is just take it easy. You will meet a lot of people. Don't feel that you have to be best friends with people just because you meet them on the first night of university. You'll meet people on the first night. That's something I notice. A lot of students seem to have this idea that if you if you meet someone in the students' union or they happen to be your flatmate or something, you have this obligation to be their best friend. You might well end up being good friends with them. That's fine, but don't feel that just because you're meeting new people, you have to be great friends with them because you'll find what sort of people you like and dislike. Um, and to hell with other people. If you think they're judging you, don't let them derail your stability. If you have questions for me, please feel free to ask questions. I'm not suggesting I'm an expert, but I have been there. I've been through this and I know what it's like to face that sort of social pressure that goes on in university campuses. Maybe you feel very lonely. I certainly did. There was times I felt miserable because I felt so lonely, but it wasn't all bad. I had some happy experiences as well. So I'll just close with this. It will be an exciting experience. It will at times be a challenging experience. It will at times be a stressful experience. It will also be a very interesting experience. Do not let it get on top of you. Just try to focus on your studies, enjoy the social life, and be comfortable with yourself. You are a good person. You're someone who can make the best of yourself. So don't waste those years. Don't, just drink every night and be stupid. But at the same time, don't put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect because you're not perfect and you never will be. So I hope this is helpful. If you're a young person, you're going to university, you have some questions about this side of things, feel free to ask. But please don't think that if you've just left, if you've just dropped out, it's not the end of the world. Yes, it's disappointing, and yes, it maybe shouldn't have went that way. But believe me, you can still have great achievements. I've done things that I'm very proud of in the years since I've been to university. I went to another country. I worked in another country. You know, so there are things that you can do. The bottom line is don't let anybody else judge you. Yes, we all do it. It's part of human nature, but don't let their judging get you down because those are people, anyone who spends all the time focusing on, someone else falling behind, what does that say about them? Just focus on what you can do. Focus on your own journey. This is so very important. You will have disappointments. There'll be times when you disappoint yourself. There'll be times when you should be proud of yourself. But please just take it easy. That's the best advice I can give. Take it easy. Yes, work hard, but enjoy the experience and gradually find yourself. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. If you are finding it overwhelming, feel free to send me a message and I'll try to say what I can to not just make you feel better, but to tell you the truth, to tell you what you need to hear. Because nothing that happens at university will destroy your life unless it's something like, you've been falsely accused of something or whatever. And that's another area. In which case I'm still happy to talk to people who are in that situation. Maybe you are innocent and you've been falsely accused of something, but that's for another video. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm not saying I will have all the answers about your specific situation, but I hope I'll be able to say something. So thank you for watching and best wishes.